This is Hemet.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you give a $5 a month donation, you can get access to ad-free versions of this show. So please do that. Thanks. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very curious because on Twitter you teased this episode by saying you're going to tell me about the whitest thing you ever did.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about it for the past hour, and my mind is racing with options.
Okay, it's a compound thing, and I was embarrassed when I realized actually what was happening. So this weekend I'm going to a wedding for the first time, and as you know, as of today, Illinois, quote-unquote, opened back up,
right.
Which I will say everywhere I went today, everyone was still in masks, so...
That's good.
Yeah, it's good to know. But, so I decided to get myself a manicure pedicure, which I haven't done in so many months like everybody else, as a special treat. And I realized as I was sitting in the pedicure chair, I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to Planet Money, a podcast about finance and football players and whether or not they should be able to get paid.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized I'm also wearing a Planet Money t-shirt, which
Dear
is, they're
God.
both an NPR show. So, I don't know, listening to Planet Money, wearing Planet Money swag, I think...
That's at least an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Had you been holding like a latte while you do all this.
Or like a mimosa or something.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I can always strive to be better and whiter, Hemet. You know that about me.
Congratulations.
Also, thank you so much. I'm really proud. I called my parents. The other thing is tonight Friday at 7 Central, I'm going
This
to be...
is so not going to be
Oh, no, it's
available
not
before
at
that.
all, but I'm just giving... You're right, Hemet. You're right, and I'm wrong. Whenever you're listening to this, go to YouTube, go to Truth Wanted. I'm going to be on live tonight, Friday, but I assume you can stream it forever on YouTube. So I'm sure Hemet will do me the courtesy of putting a link in the notes to that.
Yes.
And my last thing is I'm going to Denver first week in August, and I might do a Friendly Atheist podcast meetup. So probably on whatever that Thursday is, August 6th, let's say. So I'm maybe 5th or 6th. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that. I don't know my way around Denver that well, but I'm visiting some friends. So those are all things I wanted to get out at the top of the show. Hemet, let's talk about white dudes fucking up.
Oh, good. That is the first story I had.
Man, I was pretty lucky. Most of our stories are about problematic white dudes, but I'm really proud that I landed this.
Okay, there was an article this week in Salon written by Phil Torres, who has covered the new atheists for a while. He's been critical of them. He's a philosopher and author. He's written a bunch of stuff about it. And I kind of agree with the gist of this article, but then it veers off track for me in a way that we are very critical of some of those quote-unquote new atheists, right. Dawkins being the primary example of that. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of issues with this. I don't want to spend the whole show on this article. I would suggest Thomas Smith, who does a podcast, Serious Inquiries Only, did an entire hour-long episode where he dissects this entire piece. Mm-hmm. I listened to it. It was excellent. I would strongly urge you to check that out.
Is this about how, the far right and new atheists are sort of merging together?
Yeah.
Horseshoe theory,
so
if you will?
So this is... Let me bring up just a few big points here. The headline of the Salon piece is Godless Grifters, How the New Atheists Merged with the Far Right. Mm-hmm. Subtitle, What once seemed like a bracing intellectual movement has degenerated into a pack of abusive, small-minded bigots. Holds no bars there, pulls no punches. A couple issues. I realize Phil may not have any control over the headline or the image, and you got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So Salon's trying to get their clicks.
I think grifter is a very large word for what they were trying to
and the
down,
picture that they includes Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, and Steven Pinker.
Is that who that third guy was?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize
And again,
it.
here's the issue. you don't have to love any of these guys. You don't have to like any of these guys. I don't think any of them are grifters. I think they genuinely believe whatever it is they believe.
Yeah, grifter
They're not
doesn't feel
conning you into, like, if you like what Sam Harris says, you could donate to his stuff. I don't think that's grifting.
No,
that's just
like, I think Joe Rogan is an asshat, but I don't think he's a grifter. I think he just puts out a product that people like, and I hate those people.
Sure. And that's not a grift. I think
right,
when
that's what
someone
I'm saying. It's like not liking somebody is not the same thing as accusing them of being a grifter.
Jim Baker, the televangelist, on the other hand, who's selling like, I have a miracle gel.
Peter Popoff.
Yes. When they're selling bullshit products. Okay, now we're talking about grifting. So godless grifters, not a fair characterization of these guys.
And like you said, I do think it's important to note that like the writer very frequently does not have control over their own headline.
Yes.
So.
And okay, other part of the headline, how the new atheist merged with the far right. I think this requires defining what do you think are the qualifications for someone to be on the far right? I mean, today, anyway.
Yeah, today I think I think the right is completely reactionary, so it's just being anti whatever the left is, right? So it's anti-gay rights, anti LGBTQ rights at all.
Sure.
It's they don't believe that it's like we can acknowledge that it's weird and not okay that like entire staffs are full of white men, and like they are like, no, like anytime you like even bring up
anti-racial
race,
justice,
they're anti-woke, anti-racial justice,
anti-woke in big quotation marks.
Right.
Good luck trying to get them to define what all this stuff means.
No, they don't know.
I also think if you're going to say far right, you have to assume we're talking about either like Trump cultists or like people who strongly support the Republican Party and Donald Trump at this point, because I don't really know how you could be on the far right while still being anti-Trump. And this is kind of the crux of what I want to criticize.
Okay, I understand what you mean. And I think that the term far right is just too loaded at this point, because we call it the far right because it's the right of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
But I think it's also worth noting that like Dawkins probably doesn't believe in Trump's politics.
Right.
But maybe aligns with, we don't have to be so worried about making sure women are equally represented. I just think
So this is the nuance I want to talk about, because the article, Phil's article, actually does a really nice job of explaining many of the problematic things all of these people have said. Those are 3. There's about, I think, 8 of them listed in the article.
Okay.
And
is it all white men?
I think there's one who's not. I can't remember. But they're all there. It's just a series of links. It's like, he said this, he said this, he said this. It's like, okay, I can't say that didn't happen.
Sure.
These aren't Phil's opinions that just people disagree about. He's like, remember when he said that? And this is the evidence he's using to say they've merged with the far right, or at least the headline says that. But the fact is, Sam Harris, I think, on his podcast has been very critical of Trump and did not vote for Trump. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on that. Richard Dawkins, for all the shit we've given him, deservedly so, did not like Trump and would not vote for Trump. He's a British citizen. He can't vote in our elections. But like, he
not
wasn't
something I'm particularly concerned about. But yeah,
he did not support Trump. I don't think Steven Pinker would have voted for Trump. Like, so first of all, if you're claiming these guys are far right, politically, that's just not true. None of these people are, as far as I can tell, by and large, anti-marriage equality, anti-civil rights. Now, Dawkins we've criticized because he belittles, dehumanizes trans people, their identities. Like, all right, I'll call you by your pronoun because I guess I will.
Right.
Like,
making a thing about it.
Yeah, but he's not actively pushing for like anti-LGBTQ policies like Christian nationalists are. So, okay, they have all these people in this article. Michael Shermer, who is a libertarian, who has published some shitty articles in his magazine, but also isn't exactly like parading around for Trump either.
Well, okay,
and
I think it's important.
Shermer is like one of those anti-social justice warrior type of people.
Also, Shermer is a full-on D-bag. Like, I am not here to defend Michael Shermer. He's, and I say that he has been rude to me personally before. He would not remember it, and I don't expect him to. I don't think he's a particularly nice person. But like, and I don't think his views align with mine at all. But like, that doesn't make him grifter. Like, I guess I'm really puzzled by that term.
We have plenty of criticisms with these guys. This article has so many links. I mean, just to give you one example of one that I forgot happened, in the long paragraph about Sam Harris, there is a quotation from an interview he gave a while back where he spoke about Ben Shapiro. I think they were doing debates on stage for some program. But he said he's described Ben Shapiro as being, quote, committed to the rules of intellectual honesty and to the same principles of charity with regards to other people's positions. As in, I disagree with him, but at least he's intellectually honest.
Which I deeply in my soul disagree with. Like, that's the entire problem with like the whole right-wing system, is that they're so obsessed with arguing with each other. They don't worry about being right. Right? Like, they think if I'm a better debater, that means my side is right, which, like, I guess is sort of how it is. But like, just because you yell me down doesn't mean I think you're right. It just means I think you're louder than me.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone to suggest Ben Shapiro's intellectually honest means you haven't listened to anything he's said.
Or you don't know what intellectual honesty means.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff they published is, there's Lawrence Krauss on the list. There's Michael Shermer on the list. I think Thomas put it well when he's like, look, some of these guys are like sex pests.
Yes.
Sex pests. To put it lightly, depending on the range of accusations against them. But again, that's different from being a grifter. That's different from saying they are on the right wing spectrum. I don't think any of them who could have voted for Trump. The only one on the list who I think is openly pro-Trump, who I think fits the bill, is James Lindsay, who we talked about as someone who promotes like anti-woke, anti-critical race theory or whatever he thinks that means, who the Southern Baptists have glommed onto as like, look, it's not just us saying this.
Right.
It's an atheist saying this. I think he's a Trump supporter. Dave Silverman is on this list, who did not vote for Trump, but voted for some third party because he thinks that...
And he's a sex pest.
And goes to CPAC to recruit people for the new right-wing organization where their president did vote for Trump. I mean... Again, there's some nuance there.
People who have been on this show. Peter, what's his last name?
Boghossian.
Yeah, he's been on our show.
I don't know how he votes, but yeah, like if you want to talk about why they are embarrassments, if you want to talk about why their views are shitty and why their different beliefs are just indefensible for someone who claims to be a critical thinker, there's so much you could say about all of these guys. To call them grifters, unfair. Yeah. To call them right-wing, it really requires a definition of right-wing that this article doesn't really get into.
I think he's using right-wing as slang for, like, just anti-social justice, right? Like, doesn't that feel like
that is what it feels like. It sounds like these are things like the Fox News crowd would get pumped up about. Like, oh, you're attacking feminists? You're questioning the identity of trans people? I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, some of them are definitely guilty of doing those things. They would be at home in a crowd full of Trump supporters when it comes to those issues.
Right.
That's about as far as it goes. Again, Phil's article was one of those, man, I want to click on all these links because there's so much bullshit here.
There's a lot linked here.
But the headline doesn't help. The picture definitely doesn't help, but I get why they did it because no one's clicking on a picture of these guys who you couldn't picture in a lineup. Of
course.
But you would know Richard Dawkins and Pinker or whatever. So there was that article that got a lot of pushback. Not pushback. It got a lot of play online for obvious reasons. But again, if you want to criticize them, there's plenty of ammo there.
Right.
Just not for being like right-wing Trump supporters.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all balled into the same thing with how Ellen and George Bush were friends or whatever. Like, at some point, if you are wealthy and white and male and influential and, you know, have a blue check mark next to your name or whatever and are treated, you know, with the reverence thereof, you're going to put your own bullshit over the good of whatever movement you think that you're participating in. They're going to look out for their own. And if that means huddling up with other white dudes and saying, as Sam Harris said, that black people are probably not as intelligent, or how Shermer apparently fantasizes about murdering people. Like,
if you're looking for people who talk about like, well, we ought to look at the science of IQ tests. And what does that say about race? Like, there's a place for you on Harris's podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Even whether or not he agrees with it necessarily, I don't want to put words in his mouth because I don't listen to it. So, but he does invite those people on. He does support.
Yeah, I mean, he's lifting up their
curiosity.
voices. It's I don't know. It's all bad. And
One
I
other
think
thing.
Go ahead.
One other thing to point out, though. The reason I'm troubled by these guys having these bad views, regardless of how you want to characterize them, is because they are well known enough, some of them anyway, are well known enough that if a reporter says, I need an atheist to talk to for an article I'm writing, they're going to jump to these guys because they are known as atheists. That's their branding, whether they like it or not.
Right.
And that's the thing that bothers me. Look, we're not a monolith. There's no organization that houses all of us in the way that many Christians might.
Right.
You could, if you're a Catholic, guess what? There's a hierarchy there. There isn't one with us. So, I have no control over these people. No one's going to stop them from believing shitty things.
Yeah.
But the thing that bothers me is if these guys are the ones that come to your mind when you think of atheist, there's so many better examples out there of people who not only are more thoughtful speakers, but also represent atheists by and large. Just let me throw out some numbers here. If the accusation is like these new atheists or these people who are argumentative, unapologetic atheists, if the implication is they're drifting to the right, the polls do not bear that out. Just to give you some numbers here. This is according to the Pew Research Center. If you look at just atheists, not even the nuns, just atheists, 87% support abortion rights. 92% support same-sex marriage. 69% are Democrats. And that's not even getting into independents. That's from a 2014 survey, by the way. You have to think those numbers have all gone up since then. And that's not even getting into the age differentiations, because younger atheists, I would guess, are even more liberal in a lot of this stuff. And I know it's been hard to figure out how did people vote in 2020, because there were so many by mail, so many irregularities, in terms of trying to figure out how did everyone vote, because you can't just ask them at the polling station.
Right.
I think atheists, by initial measures, voted for Joe Biden in larger percentages than white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump. There are more of them, white evangelicals, than atheists, raw numbers-wise. But percentage-wise, we are stronger in the camp for Democrats than they are for Republicans. So this notion that these guys and their right-wing views, whatever they may be, represent atheists by and large is just not accurate. And I know there are some people who are like, atheists, look at this thing that these atheists believe. It's unfair, because most of us as a group do not hold the views these guys with their platforms have. That's the thing. I don't want to be defined by what these guys think about a lot of issues.
How long do you think until we get out from under the shadow of the stereotype that all atheists are smarmy white guys who are condescending? And
it depends who's doing the talking. Here's the problem with that. It would change once you started seeing more atheists on TV speaking about that topic, being quoted in the media talking about that topic. But here's the thing. If you're looking at religion reporting these days, they're really, and I speak as someone who covers this stuff, there isn't a lot of reporting that involves atheists specifically. Maybe a group does something, fights a lawsuit, whatever. Right. But as far as sociologically, what do atheists think about these things? Is there a rise in atheism? Those stories do not appear. They do not show up in the paper. It's just not interesting or sexy if you're a journalist.
Right.
If you included more of those voices, that's one way it would change, but there's just no one's talking about it like we did a decade ago, which makes it really hard to get out from under that shadow.
Right. Yeah. And I don't see us. I think this is just going to be something we're going to have to carry around with us for as long as our shit is necessary.
If you look at YouTube and the atheists who are doing stuff on it regularly and have platforms, I think if you go a decade ago, maybe there's a couple of people who have larger platforms and they all fit that profile of the Dawkins, Harris, whatever. I think if you look now at who's getting views, what videos are out there, it's way more diverse, way more liberal. they're just not getting attention outside that bubble. I think I'm guessing you could probably say that about podcasts too, only because that universe keeps expanding right now. Blogging is the opposite because there are fewer of those.
Right.
But again, it depends. Who's doing the looking? Who's doing the talking about this stuff? Atheism as a subject doesn't get covered.
Right.
And without that opportunity, it's really hard to get any other voices out there.
And it's fair. Like, there isn't as much interesting conversation about, like, whether atheists are moral or whether they exist or whatever. Like, we've kind of gotten over that particular hump of society. And so, yeah, at this point, why would somebody talk to an atheist on the news? Like, we don't have an especially interesting viewpoint right now.
Right.
We're just leftist.
I think the biggest thing maybe in the next year or so is the fact that I'm starting to see more politically active groups. And so whenever there is an election coming up, you're going to see some articles about how atheists are voting, especially as the number of non-religious Americans grows.
Sure.
You're going to see more of that. And that's one opportunity that I'm talking about. But it doesn't happen nearly as much as it did like several years ago when those articles would be out there all the time because it's fascinating and there are more journalists out there. But again, these are the guys that we're talking about who tended to be quoted.
Right.
Anyway. Here, let me bring up one more thing that is political kind of related. There was a high school in Fairfax, Virginia, Justice High School. And on Monday morning this week, they had their graduation ceremony outdoors, I think on the football field. And their senior class president kind of served as the MC at the beginning, just saying we're going to have the color guard or the whatever flag people do their thing. We'll have the national anthem and the pledge. She's the one who delivered the pledge. And when she said the pledge, she said, one nation under Allah with liberty and justice for all. And everyone just kind of went on with it. They clapped, they moved on.
Can you tell me anything about the demographics of this? Like, is there a large Muslim population that would not expect it, but
no idea.
Or, okay.
She struck me as a black woman.
Okay.
I assume she's Muslim then, but I don't know much else about her. I tried looking it up. I couldn't find much about her, which is
you can't find a
which
child's religion? I can't believe it.
Good. Yeah. But here's the thing. Like, if you're listening to that, you might think, well, okay, Allah means God, so it's not that weird.
Sure.
And whatever. Let's move on to the graduation because I want to hear my kid's name being called on stage. That's the reaction everyone probably should have had.
Right.
There is a conservative news outlet, I use news in big quotation fingers, called Newsmax, which is like to the right of Fox News. Fox News is too liberal for them. Newsmax covered this this week and wouldn't stop talking about it for a while. They had a panel discussion over what this girl said at the ceremony that involved 2 anchors and 3 panelists because this is the biggest news of the day.
I really had to dissect that one word, huh?
Yeah. Among the things
look
they
at a
said...
dictionary. Oh, it's the same thing as God. Okay. All right.
The panelists said it was an absolute disgrace, un-American, unpatriotic. They somehow blamed it on Joe Biden. I'm still not sure how they got away with that one.
That's impressive.
Yeah. There was a Republican strategist named Amanda Mackey who said, hey, the pledge has included the phrase under God since 1942.
It's not that long ago, though.
And that's not even true. It was 1954.
I was going to say, I thought it was later than that.
And then she said that student should be stripped of her diploma.
What? The class president?
Yeah.
And
another
you
one.
said she's a black woman. That's so weird that they're
student,
really mad about this this black
and
woman
Muslim,
speaking
apparently.
out. Yeah.
Another GOP strategist, Mark Vargas, said she should spend a year in the military because people like me who are in combat know better, which neglects the fact that there are so many atheists in the military.
Wait, say that sentence
He
again.
wanted her to spend a year in the military as punishment for what she did, because only if she's like in combat would she understand that you have to be forced at public school to give a prayer under God.
Is he wanting her to be killed in war?
Just
and that's
fight.
her punishment?
Just fight.
But what about war makes somebody less Muslim and more generic Christian?
I don't know, but it would apparently make them more unable to understand how the First Amendment works and free speech, and the fact that if you have to be forced to say the Pledge of Allegiance to show your patriotism,
Sure.
patriotism only counts if you're forced to say that you love the country. It's why when you wake up, you have to say, renew your wedding vows every morning when you get up, because otherwise, like, what are we to think?
Well, and also, the thing is that we have to remember is that only Americans, they can only believe in God, and it has to be a capital G.
Yes.
And you definitely can't personalize a pledge that you're making toward your country with something that's more meaningful to you than a generic God term. And like, say you wanted to really drive home that this is your country and this is your religion and they mean a lot to you. Maybe you would mention your God at your graduation, and that is just a sign of spirituality and fidelity. But other than that, yeah, this girl should definitely lose her diploma.
Yeah, what was hilarious is there are Christians who will, in big quote hands again, they'll hijack their speech at graduation.
Everyone should know Hammett never does the big quote hands when he says
I'm
big quote
thinking
hands.
They will use their graduation
disappointment.
speech to talk about their faith, and that sometimes gets controversial. And the issue is like, well, did the school know you were going to say this? If they did not know you were going to say this,
Right.
yeah, it's probably legal. No one's going to fight you on it. But these same people love it when kids use their platform. They're the class president, valedictorian. They use their opportunity to spread the word of Jesus. This girl used her opportunity, without the school's approval, by the way, to say under Allah, and they're like, what? How dare you not stick to the script?
Right.
One other panelist, Melanie Collette, said she should have stuck to the script because, quote, we don't include our own God in the pledge.
You do, ma'am.
Yeah, exactly. You're a Christian.
talking
It's your
about?
God we're talking about. That's
Because we don't say one nation under Jesus? Is that what she's saying?
I think you have to stick to the script because that God represents everybody unless you're not Christian, in which case it totally doesn't. And then there was one voice of reason on the panel. I'm just kidding. This is Newsmax.
Oh, God
No, they
damn it.
didn't
I was
have
so
anybody.
excited.
But yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
Do you want to go to an ad?
Yes.
Let's go to an ad.
Yeah.
I end up doing a lot of research and writing for this show and for my website from a lot of public places, and I use a lot of public Wi-Fi, which is not good if I need to like check a bank account or because I don't want anyone tracking the websites I'm visiting or something. And sometimes incognito
Just want the
mode.
FBI to call it.
I know. When I'm looking for a kid's religion somewhere. And sometimes incognito mode like isn't enough. That hides the cookies. It doesn't hide where you've been, since internet service providers could totally see every single website you visited. And that's what ExpressVPN is for. It's a virtual private network. I've used it. It works great. ExpressVPN is an app that basically reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. It encrypts your data, hides in the background. It works on all your devices.
Yep.
I've had no problem with it since I started using it. And if you go to expressvpn.com/friendlyatheist, you can get an extra 3 months free on any 1-year package. That's EXPRESS, expressvpn.com/friendlyatheist. And we thank them for sponsoring this podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about denominations?
Denominations?
They're on the...
Like monetary denominations?
Close.
Okay.
Religious denominations. It's an interesting story because, this week the Southern Baptist Convention is gathering for their annual meeting, and it's going to be a divisive one because they're trying to figure out how to address their racism, and there's a lot of people who are like, let's never discuss it. And a lot of black pastors who are like, if you guys don't fix this and address our history as a denomination, we're all leaving. And they got to decide how much that matters to them. And they're dealing with sex abuse problems. It's not going to get better, by the way, spoiler.
No, it's not. Can I get a high-level view of why it matters to the Southern Baptists to stay together? Because they're not... We've said before, like, they're not really a voting bloc, right? Like, white Baptists are black.
White
Baptists,
evangelicals certainly vote in similar ways. Southern Baptists, which includes a lot of those people, are very similar. Not a monolith. They don't have a king. They don't have a pope. but they do vote in very similar ways.
Okay.
And when you can say we are doing this as a group, and this is the largest Protestant denomination in the country, that has pull.
Okay.
So it matters who's leading that organization.
And what kind of, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
this is really naive,
Yeah.
but like, are they talking political pull? Like they get
Any
in front
pull.
of more politicians because of who they are?
If you could say, look, as a
Okay.
Southern Baptist denomination, we oppose marriage equality, and Republicans, who we might typically vote for, you better get on board with it.
Sure.
Or, I mean, again, they can always find a legal way to tell their people not to vote for certain
Right.
people. So the point is, I'm not even talking about their convention, because
Sure.
we'll learn more about that in the coming week. But Christianity Today did published an article. It was about a recent survey done by Lifeway Research. Lifeway Research is an arm of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Okay.
Like, it's one of their in-house groups. They did a survey where they asked a bunch of Protestant pastors a bunch of questions. And one of them was, how important is it for someone to say, you know, I'm a Southern Baptist, I'm a Presbyterian,
Sure.
I'm whatever brand of Christianity you want. And what they found is that 63% of Protestant pastors believe that the importance of identifying with a Christian denomination
Okay.
will diminish over the next decade. Basically,
that sounds
10
right.
years from now, a lot more people are, even if they're Christian, they're just going to be like, yeah, I'm a Christian. No specific type.
I'm not Lutheran, I'm not,
Yeah, I'm just Christian.
Interesting.
I follow Jesus. I don't belong to any particular type. Younger pastors actually disagreed. That was surprising to me. Younger pastors think denominations will matter. Here's from the article. More than
When
six...
you say younger
yeah,
pastors, do you have an age range?
I think under 30.
Oh, okay, so really younger, okay.
Yeah,
I was
maybe
thinking like
even
50 and
under 40.
younger.
Yeah. Around a third of pastors disagreed with that thing. Young pastors, oh, here we go. 18 to 44 is their young pastors demographic, are the least likely to say identifying with a denomination will diminish. 54% of them, 44 or younger, said no, they're probably not going to diminish. So maybe that makes a difference in the future. Here's why this matters.
Thank you.
Yeah. For us, for people like us who want to know about political trends, about religious trends, it matters very much how we divvy up Christians. Like, I have a big problem when I hear atheists say things like, Christianity is harmful. Islam is harmful. Like, it's not
too
that
broad a brush.
simplistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends who we're talking about. So when it comes to politics, for example, there is a world of difference between white evangelicals and the white matters in this case. White evangelicals who overwhelmingly back the Republican Party, support their nominees, support their policies, and like Episcopalians who are relatively very liberal on all of this stuff. Lutherans are very liberal on a lot of this stuff. Like Methodists are really liberal. It depends. It's a nice way to be able to categorize them because the way these different denominations function tells you how much harm they're going to cause, how they think about social issues. A lot of progressive Christians who, okay, fine, I think they're wrong about the God thing, but on everything else, we pretty much agree. When it comes to values, we agree.
Yeah, and when you get to that point, I do not care about the God thing.
Yeah, again, we've talked about this. It's low-hanging fruit at that point to fight about the God thing because there are bigger problems in our country. A lot of atheist organizations, like the Secular Coalition for America, will do a lot of joint work with progressive religious groups because they share common values about religious freedom and what the government's role ought to be in there. And the reason they're able to do that is because you have these strong denominations that can, like, credibly say, we speak for all of these hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Christians who feel this way. We represent them. We think church and state ought to be separate. You can work with those groups, even if you disagree on the theology side. And this is the fear of losing that denomination status. Because if you have Christians who might be progressive, but who say, you know what, I'm not a Methodist, I'm not an Episcopalian, whatever.
I'm spiritual.
Yeah, I'm spiritual. Like, I'll roll my eyes. But, like, it's, I mean, fine. It doesn't bother me one way or another. But it does make it a lot harder to categorize the different types of harm or help that different religious denominations could be.
Okay.
And that's the hard thing for me. It's like losing those
Interesting.
denominations makes it much harder to categorize like which type of Christianity is harmful.
It's actually the bad one.
The bad ones. There are certain groups that cause more harm and do a bigger disservice to this country.
Right.
And it helps to be able to say, listen, I'm not talking about you Presbyterians. I'm talking about that mega church that preaches this brand of evangelical Christianity. Black Protestant churches, by and large, are really good about social issues. They are out there protesting, they're marching, and they're activisty in their religious practice. That's why it's unfair to say all evangelicals or who believe, born again, Christ is coming back soon, don't divvy them up that way.
Right.
But white evangelicals actually mean something. So
Right.
this is what you could lose if you lose that denomination thing. And a lot of pastors seem to think that's where things are heading. Because a lot of people are like, Southern Baptists, like, no, too many problems. I cannot call myself a Southern Baptist no matter where I go to church. And so I'm just not going to. Whether that means they're taking off the membership rolls is another question. But it's
interesting.
It's really hard when you have a lot of different types. It's the same, like you're an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not like Dawkins.
Right.
And I don't follow the Bogosian, James Lindsay crazy talk. So don't lump me in with them.
Sure.
And it's hard to do because we don't do denominations. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like it's very easy for the outside world to lump us all together. Oh, you're all like new atheists or something. Like,
Right.
no, we're not. Stop it. If you lose that in Christianity, it becomes a lot harder to. You almost have to paint.
I wonder
more
if they
people with a broad
become
brush.
more monolithic if they. I just honestly like maybe it will capital M matter less, but I can't imagine all of a sudden. I was going to say the church bias is going to go generic, but I don't know what kind of church it is. What's that big ass church on Route 53, right? Or 59 rather?
Which one you're talking about?
No, it's between you and me.
I'm sure it's Calvary something.
It is. What one is that one?
I don't know.
I donated blood there once. So I guess my point of view is they're all kind of the same to me, so I don't care.
Yeah.
That's a joke. They probably are different. I just don't know or care. Speaking of, I don't know what we were just talking about, but can I talk about a thing?
Yeah.
Am I good at segues or?
Do it.
Okay. Okay. So, a new poll just came out from Gallup, and it was about supporting same-sex marriage. So, essentially, the headline is it is more popular than ever. More Americans support it than ever. It's at 70% among all Americans, which is huge. We, as Americans, can agree on very little. So the fact that 70%.
Can you imagine
of people
going back to like the 2008 elections when Prop 8 in California was trying to overturn that stuff and how divisive it was for Obama to say, I support it later on. And for the Supreme Court, obviously didn't get around to it till years later. But go back like a decade or so and say like, nope, it's 70%. Not among Democrats, like among all Americans.
Yeah,
that is wild.
I'm looking at a chart here. So it looks like 2009, it was at 40%.
Yeah.
And so now, 12 years later, yeah, it's been a
It's more than
wild
doubled
ride.
since we were in high school. It's
that's so
insane.
wild. So all that's to say is I think the big headline. So that's the headline. The subhead is that now more than 50% of registered Republicans support gay marriage at I think 55%, which is
55% of Republicans.
And again, in 2011, that was 28. So again, doubled in 10 years.
Yeah.
I think there are a few things that are interesting about this. I want to know, just like broad strokes, do you think that there is a credible threat to gay marriage, or marriage equality, I should say, in this country? Like, do you think that this is a fight we're going to have to fight again? Or do you think the
same-sex marriage?
Yeah.
I don't think even this Supreme Court is going to like overturn marriage equality. I don't think they're going to do that, but I do think the idea of can religious groups get away with discriminating against gay couples?
Right.
I mean, we're waiting for that Supreme Court decision as we say this.
Right.
The question's going to be, can the city of Philadelphia, God, I hope I have that right. Do they have to give taxpayer money to a foster agency, an adoption agency that says, no, we don't work with gay couples. We'll refer them elsewhere, but we're not going to work with them. Well, then the government shouldn't be funding a group like that. That's the sort of fight about marriage equality we're going to have to deal with. Should religious groups, businesses be allowed to discriminate? I think when you have more than half of Republicans saying, yeah, I'm fine with it. And what's the number for young people? It's obviously much higher overall.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw young Republicans, like what their support is, but I have to imagine it's high too. When you have that much support, it's like, okay, they've lost that fight. That's why they've moved on to attacking trans people.
18 to 34 is at 84%.
Overall. Yes. So 70% for the whole country, but 84% of people under 35. Exactly. So it's big.
Right.
I don't think it's going to get overturned. And I think that also shows, like, what was the religious rights argument back when we were in high school, back before 2008, before Obama got elected? What was the argument against same-sex marriage? It's that it was a slippery slope.
Right.
It's that it's going to ruin the institution of marriage. Basically, the sky's going to fall.
I mean,
And
was same-sex marriage even a conversation when we were in high school? And you're a couple years older than me, but I feel like it was civil unions, which were
same rights under the law, whatever you wanted to call it.
Right.
But they were just like, you're going to force us to do marriages, same-sex marriages in our churches. And everyone's like, no, we're not going to do that. And it's like, you're going to ruin
your
the
stupid church, dude.
You're going to do these. Yeah, you're going to ruin the institution of marriage. And the people on the liberal side of that were like, none of those things are going to happen. They just want the same rights.
Well, and it was always, what's next? You're going to marry your dog or your car or whatever.
And what has happened since it became legal nationwide, or even in Massachusetts and all the other states where it became legal, it's like nothing changed. Everything was totally the same.
No, because when I guess
it showed that they were all liars and overblown and hyperbolic and bullshit artists.
Yeah.
And I think everyone sees that now.
I think they see trans rights as part of that slippery slope, though.
Sure. But gay marriage is not, they're not going back and saying, okay, fine.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know how much support someone like a Kim Davis would get these days. I'm sure she would get some, but like
still.
even that seems like she's an anomaly at this point.
Well, I was trying to look up like politicians who are still adamantly anti-gay marriage, and I couldn't find it. Just
I got a story about that actually.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the reason I want to talk about the story because that's very good news overall, but also like, where does that leave Republicans who are still trying to bang that anti-queer drum? Has it now really become more of a a shorthand of like, oh, gay marriage? It's shorthand for just the quote unquote liberal agenda, and I did my quote fingers in person.
Yeah, you did
live.
I think
like why do they still have enough effort to be mad about this, and why do they think it's a valuable thing to keep harping on, even though it's obviously wildly unpopular at this point?
I don't think I even hear. I mean, there's some far right, Christian right people who will still complain about gay people existing. That hasn't changed. There are some of those people out there. I think they just don't really talk about gay marriage. They talk about trans rights, bathrooms, things like that, athletics, the one time they care about women in sports. Like, that's it. That's what they've shifted to.
You're a fan of the WNBA. Are you Republicans?
Yeah. Name a player. I dare you.
Name a team.
Name a team.
I don't know, but Chicago...
Sky. We're the sky.
I said dream, which feels ethereally the same.
Worst feminist ever.
I know.
So
I Chicago Skylines. That's cooler. Do you think they need me to too much? Sky means nothing.
Yeah.
Chicago isn't known for its fucking sky. What are you talking about? This is lunacy.
You should write them a letter.
I'm going to.
They I don't think I've heard them talking about it as much. Like, they generally will talk about sin. They'll talk about, like, we want to, like, listen to God's word and stuff, but they won't specifically call this out politically.
Or they'll throw marriage in scare quotes.
Yeah.
That's a fun
and
thing
I've
to
heard
do.
that from Christian right groups, just not from a lot of politicians.
So, no, like, where does...
Even Trump, with Mike Pence in hand, was like, no, I'm a friend to LGBTQ people. Like, he lied. But he knew, I'm right there with you guys. Like, that he thought was a selling point for him.
Yeah, and I think people did kind of say that in primaries of like, oh, yeah, Trump is a monster, but at least he's not anti-gay people. And it turns out he is anti-whoever he feels like that day.
Remember the log cabin Republicans, like the 3 people who are gay and Republican are like, see?
What's going on with the atheist Republicans that you're sparring with online? There's like 4 of them, right? Hemmant, are you bullying people online?
No, I just quote them. And then I laugh at them, and I do it publicly, and it's glorious.
That sounds like bullying, bud. I don't know what to tell you.
My favorite one this week was when the Republican atheist groups are like, I'm paraphrasing because it's not in front of me. They were like, oh, liberals, when they're like raising their fists, or politicians are raising their fists in solidarity with the marchers. And I'm like, don't worry. Like, I got your side covered. Here's Josh Hawley waving his fist at the rioters.
Which, here's the thing, is everybody looks really dope when they have a fist in the air, except for Josh Hawley. It's almost impressive how uncool he looked doing a fist in the air.
Only he found a way to ruin it.
I know.
So, okay, stemming off of that story.
Yes.
Last week, Ronna Romney McDaniel, the chair of the Republican Party.
Ronna Romney McDaniel?
She doesn't say the Romney part out loud, but she is related.
Oh, is she Ann Romney?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
She is a Romney. Uh-huh. She just doesn't want you to know that.
Did she marry into or out of the Romney family?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
That's not, okay.
But I think she was in it to begin with and married out of it.
To be fair, statistically, any white person you meet is probably a Romney because they've made a lot of us.
Nicely done. So Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the Republican Party, tweeted last week, Happy Pride Month. At GOP is proud to have doubled our LGBTQ support over the last 4 years, and we will continue to grow our big tent by supporting measures that promote fairness and balance protections for LGBTQ Americans and those with deeply held religious beliefs. Whoop. Have you ever heard of someone getting ratioed on Twitter?
Yes.
Because
being ratioed on Twitter is just a real joy to watch. Essentially,
it means a textbook example.
Essentially, so if you're not on Twitter, when you tweet something, you get likes, you get retweets, and you get comments. And to be ratioed on Twitter means more people replied to your tweet than liked it, because they're just like, enough people were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody liked it, they all just complained about it. And it's a glorious thing to watch.
And the beautiful thing about this tweet is she got pushback from every side. Because you had the liberals like, what do you mean the GOP is supporting LGBTQ people? You guys oppose every civil rights.
Me personally for some reason.
You oppose the Equality Act, which is sitting in the Senate right now, which, unless they get rid of the filibuster, isn't going to pass. Like, you actively fight trans kids no matter what they're doing. Kids. No matter what they're doing with the bathroom bills. And when you say we want to balance protections, you're saying we want Christian business owners to be able to not sell gay people stuff that they would sell to straight people. That's what the Republican Party stands for. And if you look at their platform, which they didn't write in 2020, they're just like whatever Trump wants. So you have to go back to 2016. That thing is even harsher on gay people. Yeah. Like, the GOP is not gay friendly. No. And here she is during Pride Month, like, look, we're right there with you to the 3
Do you think it's naive or do you think it's lying?
I think she's stupid enough to think we are the party of all people and we support all. We love black people in the Republican Party.
Love black
people. That's
we
also
killed
something.
Our favorite one.
So that's from our side. You know that's coming from our side. Here's Tony Perkins of the hate group, the Family Research Council. If McDaniel was looking for a way to end her party's record-breaking fundraising, she nailed it. Right now, there are a few things she or any Republican could have said that would have been more tone-deaf and offensive than applauding the woke agenda her base is trying to combat. He's mad because he thinks she was too nice to LGBTQ people.
Yeah, I mean, the GOP has really dug itself between a rock and a hard place because I would argue from like a marketing and imaging perspective, was doing the right thing, assuming she believed it. And I would bet she does. If you're dumb enough to be in charge of the Republicans, you actually think those ideals are good and not terrible, which they are. But, that is how you expand your base, is you welcome new groups in. All like the GOP.
By doing things to actually welcome new groups.
Yes, of course it was lip service and no action behind that. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm not saying this is a good tweet. What I'm saying is that inclination is what the GOP should be running toward.
Yeah.
If they want to re-up their base, there are people who they could pick off if they, pick off of the left if they were more pro-gay, if they actually did the small government thing that they purport to do.
Instead of using that to just cover up for all the racist and bigoted stuff they do.
Right. And so what they're facing now is the GOP. If officials from the GOP condemned what she said, they are telling us all, we're not expanding who we are accepting. Either fucking line up or don't. And so in 20 years, who is joining that group? There's only so many rich white kids who are born every year who turn 18 and can become a Republican. There's a lot more of the liberals around. So it's just, she was naive and completely wrong. The GOP is wronger.
I wanted to mention a couple other responses. This is from Jenna Ellis, one of Trump's lawyers. Former lawyers. I don't know what she does now. This is wrong, GOP chairwoman. We are, or used to be, a party of conservative principles and traditional values. I and millions of decent faith-based Americans will never endorse a leftist immoral agenda. Keep in mind, all McDaniel said was, Happy Pride Month.
Yep.
That's what Jenna Ellis is mad about. And the Illinois Family Institute, another hate group. This is the best one. To have the head of the Republican Party celebrate the egregious sins of homosexuality and cross-sex impersonation should shock and outrage Republicans.
Cross-sex and drag queens?
They're always trying to find new ways to shit on trans people, and they're testing it out.
Are they talking about trans people, or are they talking about drag queens?
Well, I think they think they are talking about trans people.
They think trans people and drag queens are the same thing. Yes. I just realized.
Yes. LGB, in quotation marks, and T activism, those are separate for them, pose the greatest threat to First Amendment protections of speech and religious exercise ever posed in American history, ... with unprincipled, myopic pragmatists like that. Who needs enemies?
Dang.
This is why they have 3 members, all of whom are in their 80s.
They're just, what is the GOP's long-term plan? How do they expect to continue to build a coalition by wanting nobody but themselves to be in it?
That's the weird thing. McDaniel is awful as a human.
Sure.
But even she understands what you're saying here. We need to make sure everyone thinks they're welcome in our party, even as we absolutely don't promote policies that help them. She knows the strategy there.
Yeah.
We want to grow our base. We got to get bigger. And all these groups that are hardcore on her side are like, what are you doing? We don't want those people here.
Read the room.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how I do not like white men and do not want them to listen to this podcast, but I do understand that to build up listenership, I do need to welcome in straight white men, which is, a challenge for me, but I try. I think I'm really brave.
Wasn't there a clip of McDaniel speaking to a group of Republicans in some state somewhere, and someone said, what are you doing to overturn the election or something? And she's like, I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, well, there was nothing wrong with the election. He just lost. It wasn't. Yeah, and everyone got mad at her for being like, why aren't you playing into the lie? What are you doing? Because she's trying to look forward, how do we expand our numbers in 2022? And everyone's like, no, backwards. Go back to the 2020 election.
Remember how happy we were in 2009 when we could just complain about our black president? Wasn't that fun? Let's do that again.
These are the same people who are still mad about the 2016 election that they won. So
these are people who think that George W. Bush was the glory days. They are not. They don't have any space to have any opinions. They're all bad.
This is important to note. When McDaniel says, we've doubled our support over the past 4 years.
To 6 people?
Yeah, to what?
To what?
From what to what? You did not explain that, and the lack of numbers there says a lot. All right.
Doubled our support. Bless her heart.
One more story about the same topic, because it also amused me. This is not from the GOP. This is from Burger King.
What? Sorry.
Burger King is introducing a new chicken sandwich. It's called the Chick-king. I don't know.
I'm so sorry. That was so loud on the mic, but just Burger King was the last word.
That's how you do a goddamn transition. So Burger King is introducing a new burger. It's a chicken sandwich. I know nothing about it because it's not my food.
Chicken sandwich wars are raging around us.
So here's their tweet that they
The
posted
McDonald's one
last
is
week.
dope. Yeah.
The Chiking says
Terrible.
LGBTQ plus rights. That doesn't even make sense, but there you go.
All right.
During Pride Month, even on Sundays, eyes emoji,
What does that mean?
your chicken sandwich craving can do good. We're making donation to the Human Rights Campaign,
Cool.
HRC, for every chicken sold.
Wish
Up
it
to
was a
200.
chicken.
I know. $250,000 tops. They're saying we will donate that to HRC if you buy our new sandwich. It's a marketing campaign. Fine. Now, going back to the most interesting line here. During Pride Month, even on Sundays, that's a slap in the face to Chick-fil-A, which is closed on Sundays.
Of course.
And sells probably the more popular chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, we're open. We'll sell ours on Sundays
That's
too.
extremely funny.
Amusing. Very amusing. It also followed, I don't
That's
know.
what we call subtweeting.
Yes. It also follows the news last week from the Daily Beast that the owner
Chick-fil-A
of Chick-fil-A,
still-
Dan Cathy, in his personal capacity, still donates to groups that are trying to rip away LGBTQ rights. The chain itself, which has this like nonprofit arm, stopped doing that a
Right.
while ago. But the guy who owns the place, who still gets a cut of the money,
Right.
is in his personal capacity is giving his money to hurt gay people. So Burger King expressed its solidarity, and a spokesperson for Burger King said, this is a community, speaking of LGBTQ people, this is a community we love dearly and have proudly supported over the years, so we couldn't miss an opportunity to take action and help shine a light on the important conversation happening. Which is, okay, that's all amusing. I was totally amused by the eye roll
Totally.
at Chick-fil-A. Here's where I'm
It
just...
wasn't an eye roll, it was side eye.
Side eye.
Damn it,
Thank you.
you're so
Sorry.
old.
How much credit do you give them for this? And this is what I wanted to ask you, because I love the story.
Yeah.
They're topping out contributions at $250,000,
Which isn't that much
for a company
for
like that,
Burger King.
yes, it's a drop in the bucket. It is a marketing campaign.
Course.
Of course it is. To say
course
like,
it
hey,
is.
we're open on Sundays, come get our sandwich. Of course that's a marketing campaign. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. And also, if you are, I think people might be like, why are you giving to one specific group like HRC? Which is, they do fine work. I know people who work there. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
Brag.
there are other ones.
Yeah.
Like, there's, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's more. I feel like the HRC really like hit its peak in like 2012, which it is
I'm
not
even-
a criticism.
Not even knocking them.
No, not a criticism of them
but
at all. It
the
feels
fact
a
that-
little old.
This is not a, we want to support LGBTQ people, so we are doing this gesture. It's a, what could we do
Yep.
to promote our sandwich? Well, one thing we could do is make a donation to a group, which no one would have cared about, because for Burger King, it's a drop in the bucket. But let's do it while we, like, shit on Chick-fil-A
Yeah.
in the process.
Of course.
That will get a lot of unpaid, like, publicity, free publicity for us.
Including on this very podcast, we're waiting for a check, Burger King. Okay.
Keep in mind, also, a couple months ago, Burger King had a tweet where they made a sexist joke about how a woman's place is in the kitchen.
I did forget about that.
And in
Fuck.
response, they're like, don't worry, we're doing a scholarship program to help women. The answer was 2 women. They gave scholarships to. Like, it's performative. I'm not looking to
all
Burger King
performative.
to solve our problems, but don't go overboard with, and not you, in general. Because I saw
Right.
so many people acting like, yes, this is amazing. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's nice. It's cute on Twitter.
It's a calm down moment. Okay. I actually would love to have a conversation with you. I didn't ask. Do you have a heart out? Okay.
My kids can wait.
They're fine. They practically raise each other at this
They're
point.
in the car.
Are the windows cracked? I'll send Daddy out to babysit.
Thank you.
I would love to have a conversation with you about Pride Month when it comes to like businesses all of a sudden making all of their logos rainbow.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how? Because I have very specific feelings about it, and I would love to hear yours. And I'm kind of mad there isn't. I'm going to open
When
another
it's a
bottle of
company
wine.
that has nothing to do with it, it strikes me as weird. When it's a company that, like, when it's like a gas company, it's like they're anti-climate change, they're anti-everything that we stand for, and they're like, we support Pride Month, here's our rainbow. It's like, No, you don't get to, like, it's one thing for Oreo to say, look, Pride Month cookies. I don't care. I'm glad you think it's good for your business to support Pride Month. That's a nice thing. But like when, I don't know, BP does it, it's like, you know what? You're not really helping. Why don't you stay out of this? There are better ways to support
Nobody
people.
asked you, BP. You don't even go here.
But then when it's a company that, like, again, when McDaniel is doing it for the GOP, it's like, come on. You're not supportive of Pride Month. You're just hopping on the bandwagon. Like,
so I 12,000% agree with everything you just said. Sorry, can you hear me opening this bottle of wine?
Everyone hears you opening this bottle of wine.
Well, I have some thoughts and I have some wine.
Yes.
You're right. I want to start with that. You are absolutely right that when BP makes their fucking logo
I don't even
rainbow,
know if they did. You get the
I'm
idea.
sure they did. It's kind of bullshit. However, let me preface this with reminding everybody that I'm deeply anti-capitalist and feel like capitalism is slowly just ruining everything that's going on in this country. However, it is also the circumstance under which we live our life. And to me, it is completely cynical. It is companies saying, hey, listen, this gay pride thing ain't going away anytime soon, so we might as well try to appeal to this group because they seem to be growing. And while I see that for the cynicism that it is, also it means that the LGBTQ movement and that pride in general has become so pervasive that BP, which is not a great example because who knows?
Yeah.
BP thinks it is better for their brand to support gay rights than to be anti-gay rights. And so while I don't think what BP is doing, again, placeholder, is like quote unquote brave or even especially
like
helpful.
if Uber or Lyft did it, it's like, oh, you support, then pay your drivers more because I'm sure a lot of them work for you.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Like companies are all garbage. But if people, like if old men who have MBAs are saying, listen, this gay thing is here to stay, that means we have to lean into it the way the GOP should be doing it.
Thinks it needs to be on that side, even as it isn't.
While it is not a good thing that they do it, it is a sign of good things that gay pride is no longer this weird, like, back alley thing that people complain about. It's now fully mainstream.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about that.
Let me give a shout out to our other sponsor for this episode. It's sponsored by Blue Chew, which is an online service that sells products designed to help you combat erectile dysfunction using the same active ingredients found in Viagra and Cialis. Best of all, you could do everything privately. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line anywhere. It ships right to you in a discreet package. If you could benefit from that extra confidence, go to bluechew.com, speak with one of their licensed medical providers, and after you're approved, they will send you the prescription. Check out their website for more information. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. If you use the promo code FRIENDLYATHEIST, one word, at checkout, you could try it for your first month free after paying for shipping. That is bluechew.com, BLUECHEW.com. Go there for more details and important safety information, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
Thank you, Blue Chew.
I got one last story for you here, which is it made me question things. There's a group called the Nevada Family Alliance, which another one of those right-wing Christian.
They steal all the good words.
Yeah, we're sticking family into our name, so you think we are good people. We're not. Their head of everything, it's like a one-person group. Her name is Karen England. She said...
Karen England is a fake white person name.
She issued a press release this week. Here's what she wants to do. She hates critical race theory, or what she thinks it is, which is her way of saying, I don't want kids learning about racism, or they might learn that we're a racist country. And then white people like me will be blamed for everything, and my kids deserve better. That's what she was afraid of. And she was trying to say we shouldn't be teaching that in public schools, which means we shouldn't be teaching history or literature or anything that reminds them of what we've done.
Well, you got to stick to the canon. It's got to be only white guys that you read. It's just how the canon is.
So this is what she wrote in the press release. creating a record that could be viewed by appropriate parties, if necessary, might be the best way to urge teachers to stick to traditional teachings. And how does she want to do that? She said, we should put body cams on teachers in schools. Yeah.
Oh my God. Holy sorry, I was not ready to be fully leveled.
She is calling for body cams in the classroom. This is the beginning of the press release. With more and more teachers choosing indoctrination over education, one parent rights activist has a novel proposal. Make teachers wear body cameras.
I love everybody's solution to anything in schools is like, give them more technology. Like, ma'am, schools are barely functioning right now. Where are we getting this money?
This is a good point. Yeah, schools barely have enough money to give kids the stuff they need. Teachers are going out of pocket to pay for supplies and everything.
After Sandy Hook, they were like, let's give them guns. Like, are you donating guns?
Yeah, where are they getting enough money for these high-tech cameras for every single teacher? Every one of them. And like, can you imagine what would happen if there was a history teacher who's talking about the Civil War and turns off the body cam for like 5 minutes? Oh, the outrage.
It was about slavery. They say states' rights, but they meant states' rights to hold slaves. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God.
It's so dystopian.
She didn't mention any costs. She didn't mention the logistical
Why
problems.
body cams instead of classroom cameras?
Same deal for her.
Body cams are a wild thing to say, Hemet.
She said, we expect that the teachers' unions will reject this proposal immediately.
Oh, do you?
But we should ask what they have to hide. If police do a better job interacting with the public when they're wearing body cameras, how much more important is it for teachers to do the same? Listen, if you're a parent who thinks you're going to scan body cam footage to see what your kid learned in history class, take that time and talk to your kid and you'd be a better parent.
I would say take that time and go see a therapist because you have some control issues that you need to address, and it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility.
Do they understand, the problem in school is kids aren't listening to their teachers in the first place, but they think these teachers are going to say something in the classroom that is going to make these kids so understanding of race that it would basically drive them away from the Republican Party for life. That's what they're afraid of.
Well, and what's interesting is people who criticize critical race theory, or as you've said several times, as they understand it. I have yet to hear somebody say that anything that would be included under such a curriculum would be untrue, right? Like, they never say, no, you're going to be telling lies to our kids. They just say, no, we don't need...
Well, they think the lie is that we have systemic racism, or that... we have civil rights in this country, so, we don't need affirmative action. We don't need any of it.
Yeah, but we had the civil rights movement, and that was in my parents' generation.
And
it's not like it happened in the 1840s.
Yeah. And they have no idea that the injustices that took place hundreds of years ago still have an effect today, and they don't want kids knowing that. Mm-hmm. But there's so many assumptions that this crazy woman is making that teachers would get body cams, that anyone would pay for them, that anyone would watch this stuff. I was just about
to say, you're a parent. Are you going to watch your kid's fucking social studies class?
Yeah, do you think they were paying attention on Zoom classes all year?
I didn't pay attention when I was a student. Why would I pay attention if my kids are students?
And they think they're... Oh my God, which parents are coming home saying, I'm going to watch the footage of all your classes?
Imagine a dystopian future where you had nightmare parents and you came home from class and your parents made you rewatch all of your classes to make sure you got it. Doesn't that feel like the next step for really strict, I'm going to say Indian parents?
Accurate. And yeah, there's no way my parents would have watched any of my classes. They wouldn't have understood.
Would they have sat you down and made you? They wanted you to be a doctor.
Yeah.
You've disappointed them so much.
I have.
Listen, me too. It's okay.
I don't think
we're all disappointments.
They would not have No, this is here. We'll play to the stereotype. They would not have cared what I learned about in history class because that's not an important one.
Oh, interesting.
They'll watch the body cam for the math class. They do not care about what
Sure.
I learned in history or English.
Interesting.
Would not
I
have
did
affected me one bit.
I did not consider that, like, it was your folks that were very, like, STEM focused
No,
before
mine
that
were
was a thing?
mine were totally.
They just didn't give a shit?
They did not give a shit. They were fine.
My dad actively made fun of me when I added an anthropology minor onto my lit degree. So we all have parents.
This is why it's good to have your own kids. Like all the frustration they had with me, they can just wash away now. They no longer care about me.
Honestly,
Now all of that pressure is on the grandkids.
my parents
are
like my
3.
my parents like my 3-year-old niece so much more than they've ever liked me. It's really nice to see.
they're not
She kind of looks like
responsible.
me, so it feels good to see them being nice. That was a joke. She actually looks just like my brother, which is off-putting. Have you ever seen... Okay, my niece just turned 1, and the moment I've always thought all babies look the same.
Yeah.
My 1-year-old niece looks like she's wearing a Kevin mask. She looks just like my brother, and it's genuinely weird for me. Like, the first time I saw her, I was like, holy shit, that's my brother as a baby. It's really off.
It is weird.
It is weird, but I don't know. We're all really suspicious that the baby doesn't look like the mom, so we'll see how that goes.
That one's going to be harder to pin down.
Yeah,
Good luck with
that's a tricky one. I know she didn't drink for 9 months, so who knows? Is that it?
There's
Are you
another
done?
story about...
Oh, let's talk about it. I'm having fun.
There's a Noah's Ark replica that's not the one in Kentucky.
Why are they so fucking obsessed with Noah's Ark?
All right, here's the rundown of the history you need to know. In 2018 in the Netherlands, some dude, rich guy, built his own version of Noah's Ark. It was like a traveling museum of sorts. Imagine Ken Ham's Ark Encounter.
But it's on wheels.
It's actually in the water.
Oh!
Yeah, this is a real boat. But as soon as it was unleashed in 2018, it started crashing into the docks and everything, and it was
boats
chaos.
are hard.
Yeah. It was.
So it seems really unlikely that 2 adults created an entire ark.
I'm going to come around to this side. Here's a picture of that boat crashing into all the other boats in 2018. That's a real thing.
Those rich people are so mad.
So that boat caused problems at first, and then I don't know what deal they did with those ships it crashed into, but then the boat's back up.
Their insurance premiums went up.
It's doing its thing, and then it's back in the news because now, like, it's just been functioning as a museum, and then it docked in a city out off the coast of England, and it's been there ever since, and now it's not allowed to leave. The British government says the boat is too unsafe for you to go into the waters again because, like, you're gonna hurt people, literally. And so
Already has, probably.
we cannot. It's like saying we can't give you a license. You're drunk. Like, we're the government. We're allowed to not give you a license. So the British government's like, your boat can't leave until you pass some tests here.
Is it like when your car mechanic is like, I can't let you leave on these brakes, and you're like, fuck you, you're not my mom.
There's, like, quote unquote, an impossible stalemate. There's wrangling between British and Dutch authorities.
Wait, where's this boat from?
From the Netherlands.
It's from the Netherlands, and it ended up off the coast of England.
It's currently in England, and it can't leave, and has to pay like a €500 fine per day.
Shit.
And, like, they have no choice right now. It's like the one that was stuck in the Suez Canal or something. Like, it's you're like here. That. You're not blocking anything, this Noah's Ark one. But it just
But you're taking up one of their... Oh, my God.
It cracked me up that this boat that's supposed to save all of humanity in the Great Flood, it's like, we can't let you on the water because you cannot float. You're going to hurt everybody. You're a threat to society. So you just, until you fix your shit, you just got to stay here and not move. Like,
so
that's the metaphor I've been longing to hear forever.
Okay.
The Noah's Ark vessel is a safety hazard.
What do you think is funnier, objectively? This story, which is extremely funny, or that time that that Noah movie got delayed because there was too much rain, which I hated that movie.
Oh, that was That was
What's
true.
that fucking guy's name? I hate that director.
Oh my God, I can't remember who directed that one. But yeah, that happened. They had to shut down production because of rain.
Yeah.
Temporarily.
No.
This one's amusing because I don't know how this one ends. Like, that movie eventually came out. I don't know what they're going to do with this boat.
Oh, it's Darren Aronofsky was the director, and he's maybe my least favorite director working today. I think he's a fucking monster and hates women for some reason.
I can't believe Ken Ham won the Noah's Ark Wars against this
Oh my
boat.
God, he did. I mean, it does feel like kind of a cop-out that the Noah's Ark in Kentucky. I'm going to Kentucky next month. Should I go?
Oh my God.
Anyway,
Please
I do
live
think
stream it for us all.
I do feel like it's sort of a cop-out that the Ark and Ark Encounters is dry docked. Like, put it in water, you fucking coward. Show me how you carried 2 male lions and they procreated all the fucking lions we know. I do love that every time you see a children's book, it's always the lions and they both have manes because kids are idiots. Oh, boy. Christianity sure is fun to make fun of, huh?
We've been doing this podcast for how many years now?
So many years.
All right.
The most. This is my longest job I've ever had. Although I didn't start getting paid for it until like 3 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really proud of it.
Where do we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Jess Blumke. You can also find me on Etsy at Bitches Get Stitch Done. I've gotten so many custom orders. They've been really wonderful and fun to work on, and I'm a little behind, but everybody's like, whatever, which is great. It's super fun to work with y'all. My other podcast is Cooper Duper that I do with my husband. We are through the show Twin Peaks, and we are into David Lynch's film catalog. So the one that came out yesterday was Dune. Do you know anything about them? Have you read the book Dune?
No.
Do you don't like sci-fi, do you?
No.
Do you read fiction? What do you do
Fiction
for fun?
or nonfiction?
Fiction.
I don't really read fiction.
Yeah. Oh, actually, which reminds me, Casey McQuiston's new novel, One Last Stop, which is the follow-up to Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I talked about at length on the show, just came out. I read it in 24 hours. I adored it. I just want to curl up and live in that world. I'm just promoting Casey McQuiston for no specific reason. Anyway, yes, those are all my things. If you want something cross-stitched, just, I guess, hit me up. I haven't worked.
I can give some good news that I told Jess earlier. I've been working on crosswords forever. This is my pandemic stuff. I got one accepted finally. It'll be in the Wall Street Journal soon at some point.
I did not know the Wall Street Journal did crosswords.
And hopefully another New York Times one coming in the near future.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see.
It took me like an hour and a half to finish your last one, and
Excellent.
I was not as embarrassed about that as I should. And I cheated hard. Like, I did the let me know if I'm wrong thing, and it was like, Jess, honey.
Nice.
Because I sent it to you, you're like, oh, I know that color means you cheated. I was like, of course I cheated. I'm a literal idiot.
I will tell you though, as excited as I am about all this, I just want everyone to know I have had a run of about 9 rejections in a row, and every time it's just like, all right. The thing about submitting these things is they're very specific about what they don't like. And what that does is it teaches me how to be a better self-censor. Like, I can be like, oh, they're not going to say yes to this because they got to fix this.
Sure.
And so, but it took like over a year's worth of just constant rejection to the point that anyone's kind of saying yeah. Because the first one I got in, February of 2020, it was pretty much a fluke. And so now it's like, oh.
But you'd been working on it for a long time before you got to the February one.
Doing them, not really writing them.
Oh,
and now
I
writing them,
see.
it's like, nope. And it's like, I know you're right, but man, it's tough to get those rejections.
Imagine,
and finally, some of them are saying yes.
That's awesome. Imagine being so smart that the New York Times crossword puzzle is not enough of a challenge and you need to create your own. I am still struggling on the fucking minis. I'm deeply mediocre at crosswords, which is fine.
I'll let you know when they're out. I don't know when.
Yeah, we'll definitely post it.
Find me at Hammett Meta on Twitter. You can go to friendlyatheist.com. Please, if you like this show, go to patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast. Give $5 a month. You get ad-free versions. And there's a private Facebook group for anyone who's listening who's a fan of the show.
Yes. I actually have been dipping in there a lot. I asked some people about tips on Denver and things like that. I also, as ever, would love to read a rating, which I wasn't vamping to find it. I was just talking the way I normally talk. Okay, this one is, well, it says Jessica and Hemant are INCR ellipses, and there's no way for me to, I hope it says incredible. It could be incredulous. Jessica and Hemant are incredulous.
Increasingly irritating.
It's from Mad M-A-D, it doesn't matter. 5 stars. Love the podcast. Hammond's the brains behind the topic, but Jessica's the heart. Don't let dumb white men take the wind out of your sail. Good news, Maddo said, I don't, and I don't ever. And I got a few instances of not all men in my Twitter feed. And guys, if your tweet at me is, hey, not all men are X, just read... Google not all men and read 2 articles before you tweet me. It's all I'm asking. And then we can have a fun, neat debate about whether or not white men need to have their feelings protected more. Okay. That's all I have.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.